Hello world! Welcome to Musicode, the show where we explore topics in computer science and in music and combine them in creative ways. In this first episode, we're going to explore two basic concepts, musical notes and computation. Musical notes. Now, what are musical notes? They're symbols that represent sound. And even though we can have infinitely many sounds, in Western music we typically categorize them into 12 distinct pitches. C, C sharp D, D sharp B, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B. So why 12? Math. Way back in the day, Pythagoras started experimenting with strings and discovered that there's an inverse relationship between the length of a string and its frequency. He discovered that if you start with a string of frequency F and add a new string of frequency 3/2 F or 1.5 F, when you pluck them together, they sound quite nice. It turns out that a frequency that is 3/2 of its original frequency is a perfect fifth above the original note. So if we go back to the piano and we start in the C, a perfect fifth above that would be G. Let's say we start at the bottom of the piano in the lowest C and kept on adding notes that are 3/2 the frequency of its previous note, or perfect fifths. Turns out that eventually we end up back in C. And how many notes did we pass along this path? Well, you guessed it, 12. So you may be asking yourself, if there are only 12 pitches, why are there so many keys in the piano? These 12 pitches are arranged into octaves, and every time it repeats, we're hearing the same frequency only multiplied by 2. So if you start at C and multiply its frequency by 2, you're going to hear C again, just an octave higher. And if you repeat this, you'll hear C another octave higher, and so on. In Western notation, we arrange these pitches into 5 lines, which we call a staff. And we place circles on the lines, in between the lines, or sometimes outside of these 5 lines, to represent the different pitches that one can hear. Where we place the circle on the staff tells the performer what note to play on their instrument, and the shape of the circle and the staff attached to it tell the performer how long to hold that note for. There are obviously many important details that I'm omitting from musical notation, but for now, these are the basics. With these tools, composers can dream up new pieces of music, write them down on paper, and then get musicians to perform them. So musicians are essentially transforming symbols on a page to music in your ears. And that is a great segue into our next section. Computation. Wikipedia says, computer science is the study of algorithmic processes and computational machines. And I agree. But what are algorithmic processes and computational machines? At their most basic level, these processes or machines take an input and convert it to an output. So are musicians just algorithmic processes or computational machines? Well, in a sense, they are. But as its name implies, computer science develops and studies these processes to be run on computers. Specifically, computer scientists, such as myself, build these programs using specialized languages such as C++ or Python. Just like the circles and lines on a musical score tell a musician what notes to play, the code in a file tells a computer program what operations to perform. There are all sorts of programs we could write. We could, for instance, write a program that always responds yes and. We could also write a program that does nothing. Or we could write a program that just parrots back whatever we send it. Well, we can do something similar with the piano. It's actually kind of cool. Check it out. But we can do something a bit more interesting. So we can capture everything that I'm playing and then play it back in reverse. For the last segment of this episode, I'm going to perform a 2-part invention by Johann Sebastian Bach and then have my code and this fancy piano play it back to me in reverse. Enjoy.